You know, I thought for sure this boat trip was gonna suck. When we got aboard, I was thinking, really? A paddle steamer? I get seasick at the drop of a hat, but you all seemed so excited and I didn't want to be a joy kill. But you know what? I've had a good time so far. Those clouds look kind of dark and ugly though. Wind's picking up too.
This is a great party. You guys, you're just so great. And this is a great boat. This is, I don't know, it's just so great.
I'll drink to that.
You'll drink to just about anything.
Damn straight. Which, that's actually not how I like my drinks. I like ice and fruit and mixers and little umbrellas. You know, like the fancy drinks you get at a resort. Resorts, drinks.
Oh, speaking of which, where's more drinks? I'm a big, giant, biggly, wiggly guy. I need more.
Listen. You've been riding that donkey long enough, dude. I think it's safe to say you're about normal size again now. Okay? Congratulations. You survived incredible.
Aww.
I think it's pronounced congratulations.
Bacchanations.
People in the Big Easy are surprisingly generous. When they saw your grotesquely large self at the floating drive-through daiquiri bar, they just threw in an extra 2 daiquiris for free. No questions asked. It's almost a shame you recovered. I don't suppose there's any chance someone might happen to have more of that poison crap?
Hey, don't look at me. I'm right out of dangerous research chemicals. Oh, well, fun while it lasted, right? Cheers!
Cheers to Zachariah for getting us free drinks! Yay, drinks!
Here's to me!
That's odd. Look at that open ocean. Shouldn't we be turning north by now? And it seems to be getting warmer instead of colder.
Who cares? What are you, Professor Compass? Having person? This is great tropical drink weather.
My favorite kind of drink and weather.
But aren't we supposed to be heading to New Jersey? I specifically told the captain our destination.
To once again roam the rolling hills of my homeland, where the weak are killed and eaten. To smell her rich aroma, Clark Nova will love it. I did promise him more despair and general dankness.
You better believe it, Danny boy.
It's just the wind blowing off Staten Island.
Speaking as a native, why exactly are we going to that terrible fucking place?
Yeah, there is nothing at all tropical about New Jersey. I mean, except maybe the sheer amount of insects.
We have to lay low. The cinema assassins could be on our tail at this very moment.
You know, you have a real lack of trust in other people.
I wonder why.
'Cause you're smart. You're a smarty pants, and that's why you and I don't trust any of these other fuckers. We ladies gotta stick together. yeah, you too. Get in here, bitch. Mwah! Love you, bitch.
I think you've had enough daiquiris for tonight.
Nobody
Back to
tells
business.
me when I've had enough daiquiris.
I guess this is looking a little bit tropical, and there's no reeking trash piles. Let me just check our coordinates on this radio GPS. Whoa! What is that feedback?
You're listening to the Ragtime Musical Jamboree Hour with me, Jazzmaster Major General Coolman.
That is no ordinary feedback. It appears to be a broadcast of jazz music.
I'll be looking at the latest jazz recordings that have come out on the wireless and on...
Is that Brother Methuselah vamping background?
Scooby-Dooby-Doo-Wah, Scoodly-Doodly, Hemorrhoids,
Oh, Brother Methuselah? Not likely. We just saw that creepy old wrinkle salad putting around the deck. Where would he even get broadcasting equipment? Wasn't our traveling setup it was trashed like ages ago.
Blah, 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 blah. Enough boring talk, more pina coladas.
Yes.
But aren't those islands out in the distance? Strange transmissions? Unusual locations? This better not be a mystery. Oh, whatever. I'll have a painkiller.
That's more like it. There you go.
Keep drinking me, Mary.
Boilermaker.
All right.
That's what I'm talking about.
Where's the captain? Hey, where's the captain? Where's the captain?
What's this? Splinters on my fingers!
As the paddle steamer capsizes and sinks beneath the waves, the Cinemania Society are forced to abandon drinks and swim for their lives. Inebriated and lacking in basic competencies, each is overwhelmed by the raging storm. All looks lost. Until, in a sudden and miraculous act of Deus Ex Machina, our heroes are saved from drowning by a rogue wave that carries them to the shores of a mysterious island.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Oh.
Oh, my head. Oh.
Are we?
And where's my drink?
Oh, my cloaca.
We appear to be on a deserted tropical island.
Where is Illuminator Andy?
Excuse me, over here. I did try to bravely swim away with the last life jacket, but it turned out to be an 80s era puffy jacket painted orange, and then I collided with this bloody lifeboat. Figures I would wash up next to you lot.
Oh, serves you right, you little backstabber. Wait, I don't remember there being any lifeboats. Where'd that come from?
Has anyone seen Clark Nova?
What? Is he lost?
Scuttling around Davy Jones's locker by now, if there's any justice.
Clarky! Clark Nova! Where are you, buddy? Speak to me! Rattle your carriage return if you can hear me!
Oh, I haven't seen him anywhere. And there's none of that gross slime trail he always leaves behind, so...
Well, I'm calling it. He has been lost at sea.
About freaking time, jeez.
No!
We're all alone here. I don't think this is New Jersey, unless someone nuked the site from orbit.
It's the only way to be Jersey Shore.
It's an outdated pun, but I'm allowing it.
So, what do we do now?
Hey, did you hear some muttering coming from that lifeboat? We should check it out. There could be more survivors.
Hello? It's all of you. I'm saved. I was just making sure my suitcases and traveling clothes were dry, you see.
Luggage my ass. My still a little bit gigantic ass. Look at this. We got batteries, cables, microphone. This is a portable studio. Broadcasting without us. Where's the loyalty?
I'm very disappointed.
Wait, broadcasting? Is that our old broadcast equipment inside? Repaired?
Well, you see, none of you seem to want it after the malfunction, so I just,
Stop your blathering, you once-witted peasant. So it works.
And this means...
Don't you get any ideas?
Now, there's always ideas.
Hey, everyone, look at that in the waves. What is that?
Ooh, is it a poo?
My gavel! It has washed ashore. Oh, you came back to me, my blunt-faced, brass-inlaid angel. This is a sign.
Sign of what?
A sign that he needs to tie a fucking string to that goddamn thing and wear it around his neck.
No! A sign that we must conclave immediately.
I was really hoping to start my next jazz commentary.
But what movie could we possibly judge? Here, on a deserted island, while we're all probably hungover.
Deserted island, forbidding jungle, deadly rocks. We must all immediately change into white linen suits and pith helmets. It's our tropical exploration uniform.
Second.
Now, who's cosplaying the colonialist? I get to give you shit for a change. My, how the tables have turned.
Now you're just taking the pith out of me.
White linen suits? Really?
In this humidity with my hair.
It is in the cult bylaws.
You know, all this old-time explorer stuff on a lost jungle island reminds me of a classic black and white film about a dangerous, forbidden island, the Island of Lost Souls.
Dun dun dun!
Marooned on a mysteriously empty tropical beach, an ocean away from what was once the strip mall of the damned. Past the palm trees and remnants of a wrecked paddle boat. Beyond the lifeboat, wherein Brother Methuselah had reassembled the Society podcasting equipment. A secret society assembles to scrutinize those films rumored to drive viewers to madness and dissolution. Draw closer, dear listener, and let your trembling ears sup upon the eldritch knowledge of the Cinemania Society.
We, the fellows
We, the
of
fellows
the
of the
Lens,
Lens,
do convene to judge this offering of
cinema
worthy of our esteem, or whether it should cast down worthless hokum.
Blah, blah.
Let us
dark
dark our
fezzes and
fezzes and
judgments.
Oh.
What do we have? What do we have?
Helmets?
Pith
Helmets.
helmets will do.
Helmets.
Oh,
yeah.
God,
All right.
why?
So picky, though.
Ugh.
I am Professor Andrea, scholar of San Francisco and Pontifex of Presentment for today's subject of scrutiny. But first, I must issue this warning. We disciples of the Cinemania Society have studied the mysteries of the motion picture and meditated upon the silver screen for many years. Therefore, we have become inured to the films we scrutinize, which may contain hazards unsuitable to young, insensitive ears. As such, we advise anyone listening to do so with discretion. Guard your ears carefully, lest you develop a severe and irreversible case of cinemania. Present at our conclave today are Sinquisitor Ethan, Keeper of the Lenses,
I am here.
Scrutinizer Zachariah, Guardian of the Door,
Is this going to be a stand-up fight or another bug hunt?
Profligator Daniel, Possessor of the Word,
Yes.
Arbiter Alessa, Voice from the Outer World,
Huh? What? Oh, yeah.
Verifier Andy, Master Illuminator,
I've got some sand in my shoe.
and Auntie Hope, Keeper of the Booze.
I'm still salty about y'all ruining my bookstore. And a little bit because of the ocean water, but mostly because of the books. Very, very salty.
Today's subject of scrutiny is Island of Lost Souls, the 1932 American science fiction horror film based on H.G. Wells' 1896 novel The Island of Dr. Moreau, directed by Earl C. Kenton and starring Charles Lawton, Richard Arlen, Kathleen Burke. Profligator Daniel will act as master castigator for this conclave.
Thank you. So, charges against the Island of Lost Souls include geometrical facial hair, physical abuse of a dummy, 1960s levels of back hair in a 1930s film, living inside a cubist impressionistic nightmare, criminal overuse of foam latex, criminal underuse of Bela Lugosi, daring to challenge Hadley, Michigan for the title of asparagus capital of the world, unleashing the Panther Woman upon the trembling world of men, offering a charming dinner with a selection of wines, but no cheese course. Weird 1930s accents.
Hey!
Tell me I'm wrong. Blasphemous misquotations of the laws of man. Whitewashed casting. False depiction of an efficient government agency. And obvious lack of ethics committee oversight. Actual trigger warnings do include racial stereotyping, yellowface, torture, vivisection, implied support of colonialism, implied support for white supremacy, certain amount of misogyny, implied support for eugenics, implied bestiality, and consent violations galore. So, do be aware.
Hey, look at this, guys. I finally have a door.
Stop that! I can't get out! Help! Police! Murder!
Quiet, you.
Profligator Daniel, you will present the first part of Island of Lost Souls.
Yeah, and what if I don't feel like it?
Scrutinizer Zechariah will lock you behind the door with Brother Methuselah.
Ooh, I actually get to guard a door again?
Oh, where was I? Oh, yes. Let's take it back to the 1930s, everyone.
It's black and white adventure on the high seas. A steamer is making its way through dense mists and happens to see something floating nearby the wreckage of a ship that would have been too expensive to show. But they also happen to mention that there's a derelict floating around. Ho there!
Who are you calling a hoe?
Oh, damn.
There's a man in the water.
No, I don't mean here. I'm talking about the film.
Our leading man, Parker, is rescued by a passing ship on its way to an obscure tropical island. His ship, the Lady Vane, sank. After passing out, Parker awakes to meet Mr. Montgomery, who he assumes is a doctor, to which Montgomery replies, "Yes, at least I was." Foreshadowing!
Yeah, it sounded like an intro to fucking Legend of Korra. Anyway.
Yeah, where do you think I steal that from? That's also what they're doing.
It sounds like the opening of the Clone Wars.
That
Oh
too.
shit, true!
Yeah, no, they do it for both.
Parker asks the doctor to send a message on the wireless to Ruth, his betrothed, who is waiting at the Continental Hotel, telling her that he was rescued, and when he expects to land in Apia. That's the capital of Samoa, don't you know? This is back in the days when you could just demand someone send a message to a random person in some place and just assume it would arrive with no further detail needed.
I mean, how many Ruths were there at that time?
At least 3?
Was one of them a baby?
Stop.
Okay. At Apia, Ruth, in her crisp white linens, perfectly suited for this tropical island climate, is reviewing the list of missing passengers from her fiancé's ship. And gosh darn, wouldn't you know it, he's on that list. This is the sort of thing that happens often enough when they have a designated location for panicking Western tourists to ask about their drowned fiancés. But then she gets the message he sent. She's overjoyed that he was rescued and will be arriving soon. Meanwhile, on the ship, Parker checks out the zoo animals, because apparently it's a zoo ship. On deck, they pass cages with a tiger, a hyena, a lion, a man in a gorilla suit.
And lions and tigers and bears, oh my!
Not to mention all the dogs just tied up in the hot sun. PETA would not be happy about the conditions. And they haven't even seen the actual island yet. Not to mention the health and safety violations. You just know they've been provoking that lion, and the man in the gorilla suit looks about ready to gobble an orphan. Which is how you know it's a man in a suit. Real gorillas are herbivorous, don't you know? However, the good doctor wanders around in a pith helmet, so you can tell he's a man of science and understanding. Right? To paraphrase Rick Moranis, that's some good helmet right there, baby.
What? You went over my helmet?
Parker meets Captain Davies, whose only character notes read, "a drunk." He despises their cargo and the destination. Apparently, they have been paid to haul cargo to an unknown island with no name. But Davies is no fool. He knows all about Dr. Moreau's secret island. It really isn't a very well-kept secret, to be honest. He calls Dr. Moreau a grave-robbing ghoul. Foreshadowing! Yet, he still works for the guy. Capitalism, I guess? Anyway, when Mling, manservant to Mr. Montgomery, comes up to serve the dogs, the captain hassles and then slugs him. Parker calls him out on it, and Captain Davies takes a swing at him too. See character notes. But Parker dodges, rolling a nat 20, and lays him out flat before going to help Mling up. For an instant, Parker notices Mling has an ear that looks rather dog-like. Foreshadowing!
I'm sorry. I just want to point out that the actor that they cast to play Mling was actually a Japanese man. And
Yes.
this was in a period in American cinema when they were doing, Yellowface, that Charlie Chan was not that far off. But they actually cast a Japanese man in this role, which, problematic as it is one of the few instances in which there was a person of color who was cast to play I don't know if I could call Mling a person of color, but basically they cast a person of color.
Well, yeah, though, I mean, almost all of the other extras and animal creatures were not actors of color. So I don't know quite what it says, but you're right. Like,
Jeez.
It's an attempt.
They're like I said, it's problematic. But what were you going to say,
An
Alyssa?
attempt
Sorry.
was made.
Oh, just the combat was like, it jumped out at me as like super realistic for no reason. It was fast paced. People folded like they do on like random internet videos. Like, oh my god, it stuck out to me. Sorry.
So there's a reason for that, and you see it in other fights too. It's sped up.
Well, yeah, of course,
Yeah, well,
absolutely.
so-
but
right,
the fact
so
that they
they
tried, that was like,
Yeah, they'd shoot it slow because it's stage combat and they didn't want to hurt themselves.
Oh yeah.
And they didn't want to actually have to learn how to do stage combat well to make it look good without cranking. Then they cranked it. I don't know. To me, it looked actually a little janky, but
I mean, yeah.
Then again, I watch way too many action films and look for that sort of stuff. So yeah. It was kind of funny though. Like he did drop like a goddamn stone.
Yeah.
So once they reach the island, they are met by a small boat to take delivery of all those animals. And it is being piloted by none other than the infamous Dr. Moreau.
Dun dun dun.
Captain Davies yells at Dr. Moreau, saying he won't take any more deliveries. He also insists Parker get off his ship, and when Parker refuses, the captain knocks him out and literally throws the dummy overboard. I hope they paid that dummy well because it looks like a 30-foot drop to the wood plank ship below deck. A fall that would kill a normal man. Dr. Moreau and Captain Davies argue about maritime law, while Parker tries to climb back onto the ship, but the sailors literally pull up the ladder to prevent him. Looks like Parker won't make it to Apia to meet Ruth after all. Set sail for Club Moreau!
Hooray!
Yippee.
Ugh, this rum tastes terrible. I need a mixer.
And just where did you find said rum? On the beach? And can you direct me to where that was?
In the pedal wheeler's locked bar case.
Hope, I didn't know you had such skills.
I helped.
Speaking of your skills, verifier, Andy, Illumina, whatever you are, I could use your skills, climbing skills specifically, to get me a mixer. I spy coconuts in those trees over there.
Those, tall, skinny palm trees in the dark, scary jungle.
That's right. Use your skills. Off you go.
My tree climbing skills. That apparently I have now. Look, I'm a dumpy delight, not a skinny whippet.
Get up there and quit your belly aching.
Maybe we could find a pineapple further in. Those are extra prickly. I mean, tasty. I'm sure Illuminator Andy wouldn't refuse, after what he put us through during the last conclave.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I mentioned that mistakes were made. Let's not have any hard feelings here.
Enough talk. Fruity juice. Now. Andy. Go.
Pineapple? Like an actual growing out of the ground pineapple? I've never seen one of those in real life.
You've never seen a pineapple before? Well, my young apprentice, allow me to be the first to inform you that it is, in fact, neither an apple, nor does it come from a pine tree.
I want to get a picture of that pineapple to post to my Instagram. Wait for me, I'm coming too!
Well, there goes half the society on a quest for fruit juice.
They will be sorry when they return.
What was that?
Oh, nothing.
Should we be worried about them?
I'm sure they're just looking for the most appetizing jungle juice mixer. It's not like they could be in any serious danger.
I haven't seen any pineapples at all. Maybe this isn't that type of jungle.
Is there such a thing as a pineapple jungle? I mean, what about a grapefruit boulevard or a banana swamp?
No. Banana is a political designation, not topographic. Hence, Banana Republic.
This place gives me the creeps. There are bugs in jungles, aren't there? Like, big ones?
Shh! You hear that? Pat, there's a kookaburra. Where in the Reese's peanut butter fuck are we?
Do you hear that buzzing? And is that the sound of a stapler? And earlier, I think I heard a hole punch going off.
How do you know what all of that crap sounds like?
I spent a year in purgatory doing basic admin. Don't ask me any more questions. The answers are lethally tedious.
So shouldn't we be turning around, away from the strange noises?
And the bugs. I don't want to meet anything that buzzes that loud.
Shut up, you two. What is that?
What are the wars? A4, good. Letterhead bear! Helmet come forever!
Is this a hallucination? I'm not that far gone yet.
If my eyes don't deceive me, those are definitely a grasshopper stapler, a ladybird binder clip, and a scissor moth. And behold, there amid the madness, raised up on a dais of three-ringed binders.
Clark Nova! Oh, I miss you, little buddy!
Oh, it's you. I moved on, Danny boy. I'm king of my own cult now. These insect stationery supply creatures are my own creations. I created them in the House of Cain. Cedric Cain, that is. His portal was extremely helpful in the assembly.
Whoa. This is insanity. You've gone too far. Way too fast.
Too fast, Danny boy? No, we are stationary.
I sense a crappy pun, but I'll allow it.
But Clarky, we're a team. Without you, I wait. Hang on. Anyone remember how to sign "You Complete Me"?
Forget it. I got my own worshippers now. I am God here.
Daniel, those insect creatures are getting closer. The scissor moth is slicing in my direction, and the hole punch sure looks punchy.
Why couldn't one of these have been part cocktail shaker? Okay, everyone, on the count of 3.
3, run away. And last I checked, cocktail shakers aren't office supplies.
You obviously weren't checking the right offices. Haven't you watched Mad Men?
Clark Nova! No!
Get out.
Let me go! Leave me to die among the office supplies!
Come on, man!
Oh my god. Oh, I hate running. Oh my god, I almost spilled my drink. Oh my god.
Where have you been?
I can't believe it's happening! Clark Nova!
Poor guy, he's seen too much already.
What? Never mind. About time you all got back. Coffee break is over. I am the one in charge on this island, and when I say conclave, we conclave. Daniel, you seem to be the most sane one. You continue the summary.
Really? Okay. Dr. Moreau is disgruntled and
Properly.
Okay. Okay. Dr. Moreau is disgruntled about this unexpected guest, but he pledges to arrange a trip back to the mainland for Parker just as soon as possible. And why wouldn't you immediately trust this man? He has a gun belt and some of the most remarkable facial hair. It's like a downward-pointing arrow goatee underneath a chubby mustache. I mean, that's exactly what it sounds like. It's a mustache, but chubby. Anyway, Moreau swears Parker to secrecy about the island and warns him to be cautious while he is there. Foreshadowing. On the island, Parker notes the strange-looking natives, who also look a lot like Dr. Moreau's servants. Moreau uses a whip on the local inhabitants, because of course he's also carrying a whip around like it's no big deal, but Parker has no objection to this style of employee management. Colonialism much?
Well, the Brits did once describe the whip as the mainspring that drives the British Empire. Explains a lot, doesn't it?
Hey.
Eesh. That is.
I mean,
Ouch.
anyhow, Moreau's home is this weird mansion filled with foreboding impressionistic shadows on every single wall, regardless of the angle of the light. And it appears to have been built in Minecraft out of pure white cubes for some reason. The whole compound is massive, and it is completely unclear how the hell Moreau put all this together. But it is equally clear that he doesn't feel like explaining much. When Parker asks about the strange-looking natives, Moreau insists that he must surely be wanting a cold shower before dinner.
The word natives is definitely in quotation marks here.
Because nothing gets you hot and bothered like a freakish-looking man creature with a piggish snout and a piggish potbelly.
Lucky Parker didn't ask about the large amount of exotic animals in cages everywhere, or it would have been a full sauna and a massage.
Parker is instructed not to leave his room that evening. Foreshadowing. Despite the eerie moaning sounds that they heard at dinner. No, Zach, not like that.
No.
I don't know about you, but when I'm staying over at someone's house and they tell me, don't leave your room, that is when I am getting the fuck out of there.
No shit. That is what we call on a first date a red flag. If I were Parker, I'd want to get off that island fast. But no such luck. Dr. Moreau and Mr. Montgomery are plotting something. He has a plan, you see. The sort of plan that I'm sure any pair of linen suit-wearing gentlemen on a secret island full of mutated animals would come up with. We are introduced to Lotta.
La 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 Lotta.
No, no, no,
No
no,
singing.
no, 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 no.
Anyway, Lotta, not Lola, Lotta, appears to be a pretty, scantily clad woman with long dark hair. I say appears because it's clear from the outset that there is something rather different about her. Dr. Moreau wants to test Lotta and her, quote, emotional impulses of a woman on Parker. Dr. Moreau meets with Lotta and asks her to talk with Parker, the man from the sea. But Moreau warns her not to mention, quote, the law, in caps, the doctor, or the House of Pain. Foreshadowing. Here's a tip, kids. When you meet a new person, it's probably a good idea not to immediately start ranting about your pain house and all its laws. Unless you're one of those special clubs with blacked out windows and mirrored tables. Anyway, back to foreshadowing. Dr. Moreau introduces Lotta as pure Polynesian.
Oh, boy.
Good.
She's the whitest fucking Polynesian I've ever seen in my life.
And the only woman on the island, so of course Parker tries to guess which Pacific Island nation she's from, and it's just your standard colonial era post-dinner game of Guess the Foreigner.
It's okay, though. One of his best friends is a Pacific Islander.
Ugh.
At first, Lotta is afraid of Parker, but she opens up more after dinner. Dr. Moreau leaves the two of them alone, and then the two of them hear a loud scream. Parker's worried, and Lotta immediately tells him about the House of Pain. Lotta, you had one bloody job. Parker runs off to follow the sound, and enters a room where Dr. Moreau and Mr. Montgomery are conducting an operation on a fully conscious, screaming person. No anesthetic. It is all so terrible that Parker accuses them of torture. No shit. But the doctor just yells, "Get out!" It actually does, speaking of Dark Helmet again, it's just like that scene with him and his dolls, and he's like, "No, you did not see me playing with my dolls."
It reminds me of when I was giving birth to my second kid, and they're like, "We want to bring some medical students in to observe. They've never seen a natural birth." And they brought them in before I could answer, and I was like, "Get out, get out, get out, get out!"
What the fuck? Every mother I know has the exact same goddamn story. They're constantly bringing like, "Hey, do you mind if we bring these students in to stare at your overly stretched cooch?" Like, what the fuck?
I'm like, that's okay. I understand they want to do that. Some moms are okay with it, but like, wait for me to answer. I was like on all fours like a fucking animal because I thought I was gonna die.
Or maybe like ask you beforehand and sign a piece of paper before they shoot you.
Oh no, dude! Even if you
Also true.
no matter what you think beforehand, once you're in the moment, you are gonna change your fucking mind. I was like,
fair. Oh, that's why they don't want to ask you
They need to
up front.
reassess in the moment. I was like, no. I literally just waved my hands behind me. I said, "Get out! Get out! Get out! Get out! Get out!" Right, go on.
So they have to spring it on you, otherwise it's a no. Great. Very consent. Okay. We don't really see what Moreau and Montgomery are doing, but the implications and the sounds of distress are pretty clear, and it's kind of more gruesome to imagine than to actually see it.
That's one of the things this movie did really well. The whole, like, less is more, like, not showing you explicitly what was happening, but kind of leaving it up to your imagination. Mm-hmm. This movie did that really well. Like, kind of working with what they had.
Well, Parker does indeed get out because he is a polite house guest. And he also tries to flee the whole goddamn island with Lotta because he's not a complete imbecile.
Also, he's a little bit of her white savior.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Slightly hysterical, Parker is convinced they may be the doctor's next victims. The gated compound is very secure, but Lotta helps Parker escape. In the jungle, they run into a camp of the local inhabitants Parker had seen previously. The locals crowd around the man from the sea, but Lotta snarls at them, animal-like, at them to keep them at bay. This works about as well as you might expect, which is to say it does not.
Man from sea! Man from sea!
Suddenly, someone bangs a gong, but it isn't Mark Bolan. No, it's Dr. Moreau. He minces into view on a little bluff above everyone else, and the entire crowd of animalistic weirdos condenses. Dr. Moreau is the kind of messy bitch who changes into a whole new white linen suit for dinner each evening and walks around at night with a gong. It's iconic. He pulls out the whip, cracks it, and asks in a soft, lilting voice, "What is the law?" The crowd, led by Bela Lugosi in fabulous makeup, recite the law. Not to spill blood, not to eat meat, not to go on all fours. At the end of each stanza, they cry, "Are we not men?"
We are diva. Oh, shit. Sorry, it's a reflex.
Nice.
And they end the chant with, "His is the house of pain," before they flee the doctor's approach. I mean, you know, if his is the house of pain, I would run too. Dr. Moreau has set up a kind of drama-filled reality show for himself, his heterosexual life partner Montgomery, and their quasi-man-beast servants on a secret island, and it involves whips, gongs, and a house of pain. I mean, I'd watch it.
Same.
I think the showrunners for Survivor must have watched this movie.
On repeat. This is the point where the sociopath flips a switch and becomes all kindness and concern. Dr. Moreau, aforementioned sociopath, realizes that his house guest is getting a little antsy and presents Parker a revolver for his safety before he politely invites him back to the house. It's like saying, "Cheer up, here's a gun."
Most American response.
As for...
That's very gaslighting, you know, like, "Oh no, it's just you, you know, don't worry, here."
He's a total sociopath.
Right. It's like, "Oh, you don't trust me? Here, you can have the gun. Now you can trust me. Because I don't have a million animals ready to rip you to pieces standing directly behind you."
But the little gong is just for me. Only I get to ring the little gong.
Nailed it. As for Parker's accusation of vivisecting a man, Dr. Moreau brushes it aside as he explains his road to science. As if he's not actually at science yet. He's just on the road to there. Like, he's on the way. You'll get there eventually. But so far, he's already had achievements in turning animals into people who can talk, kind of. Parker is incredibly subdued as he hears horrible revelations of experimenting on dogs, Mr. Montgomery's professional indiscretion, which, oh yeah, by the way, Montgomery, he sleeps with his students, FYI. There's animal surgeries without any kind of anesthetic, some giant plants he's been making on the side. Nice asparagus, I guess. It's only 30 feet tall and 5 feet wide. And finally, the poor tortured creature that Parker had heard and seen himself that very evening in the House of Pain.
Oh, yes. Did I mention that I learned to be a champion whip cracker in my youth in Australia, which is why I have this perfect Australian accent?
Ugh, I hate it.
Incredibly, Parker then accepts the doctor's offer of a room for the night.
Why?
Because he's polite still, I guess. I don't know.
Oh,
That's the real mainspring of the British Empire.
Tea and
you
etiquette.
don't need to be polite. Oh, we're really working on this in this generation. You do not need to be polite to people who creep you the fuck out. Okay? Learn
So,
this,
you know,
please.
Too non-confrontational.
Yeah.
The guy from the shout had the same problem.
Yeah, very much. Yeah.
Right. So Dr. Moreau promises to take Parker back to Apia in the morning. Unfortunately, after Parker says goodnight to Lotta and heads off to bed, Dr. Moreau tells Montgomery that it would be a loss to science if their new experiment with Lotta and Parker could not continue. Wink, wink. Foreshadowing. Next morning, Parker gets up to go and find the boat, his only way back to the mainland, to discover it has been sunk. Oh no, I have no idea how this could have happened, says Dr. Moreau, most unconvincingly, like a man who has not spent all night whipping a yacht beneath the waves or some shit. He was probably banging his little gong the whole time, too.
Bang a gong, get it on.
No
get it
singing.
on.
No singing.
Please,
Fine.
please.
Meanwhile, back in Apia, Ruth meets Captain Davies' ship, but Parker isn't on it. She runs to the consulate for help, and the film suddenly forgets itself and thinks it's a maritime legal drama for about 1:45. An unusually efficient pencil pusher threatens to revoke Davies' license until he gives up the coordinates of the island where they marooned Parker, and charters a ship to take Ruth to rescue her fiancé. It's Ruth to the rescue! Everything is going to be fine. This is definitely going to all work out for the best. You have to admit that's pretty progressive for the 1930s.
I wish we could charter a ship off this desert island.
Actually, given the vegetation, I'd say this is a tropical island.
To be fair, aside from you four, none of us has explored this island yet.
Aside from, that's more than half the society.
Were you counting me?
Oh, really?
What about the beach? No one's explored the beach yet. We might find something interesting.
Foreshadowing!
I was just about to suggest that.
Okay, but you need a chaperone. Now, Operation Find Interesting Stuff. Go!
All right, let's go.
Okay.
Still no fezzes.
Palm leaves?
Nothing on the
Palm
fezzes.
leaves.
Maybe-
Let's grab some palm leaves.
Oh, that's better than pith helmets. Jesus.
Hey, look at what I found on the beach in that pit over there. A bottle of orange-colored soda. It says Fanta Naranja. It must have washed up on shore. And beside it was a bag of
Naranja.
chicharrones. Chicharrones, yes,
Chicharrones.
chicharrones, like the guns of the chicharrones.
Give me that.
What is the law? Do not steal another salty snacks. Are we not men?
No.
Oh, what?
I meant that metaphorically.
All right, thanks. Yoink. I needed a mixer. All we need now is some snacks. And this will be a party.
Hey, that was the last of the Fanta Naranja.
It's Noranja.
Why?
Naranja. You fuck off.
Enough messing around. Don't make me get out my whip and tiny gong. What's the story so far?
The story so far. Following a tragic, unexpected deboating situation, the society is now marooned on an unknown deserted island and decided this is a perfect time to consider Island of Lost Souls, a 1932 mad science horror based on the classic novel The Island of Dr. Moreau. On a lost tropical island, an alternatively sane doctor and its heterosexual life partner have created the Society of Quasi-Beast Men, led by Bela Lugosi in a fursuit. There are extravagant experiments in biology, evolution, and fashion-forward jungle attire based on white linen suits, pith helmets, and elaborate facial hair. Things can only get better once a House of Pain comes into play. Parker is now essentially marooned on Dr. Moreau's island, with no way to sail home or get a message to Ruth. He passes the time in the garden reading a book on building a wireless transmitter. Presumably the next volume covers how to build a yacht with a functioning hot tub. With a bit of study and spare parts, he could certainly find a way to radio for help, right?
Just like Brother Methuselah.
Lota comes around and asks Parker to talk to her. Parker gets closer to her, physically and in confidence, when he says he means to escape the island. But when he admits the book will take him away from the island, she grabs it and throws it in the pond. Lota understands a lot more than her limited English lets on. For instance, how to dispose of troublesome literature.
Damn it, Lota!
Oh, it's a burgeoning Nazi.
Moistened pamphlets are no way to organize an island community.
True, yeah.
Parker is finally understanding Lota better too, and he explains that he's in love with someone else, right before kissing and hugging Lota. Oops. Because what happens on the Forbidden Secret Island of Dr. Moreau stays on the Forbidden Secret Island of Dr. Moreau.
Mixed messages much?
Yeah. But something is wrong, besides the infidelity to Ruth, when Parker notices that Lota has long, sharp nails, almost like claws.
She should have remembered to put daily manicures into the rider on her contract with Paramount.
Parker pulls away her hands and realizes who, or what, Lota is. A creature of Dr. Moreau's like the others on the island. Parker runs off to condemn the Doctor and claims Dr. Moreau's worst crime was creating a woman.
Oh my god.
Mind you, it could have been worse. At least he didn't start with a 14-ton gerbil.
Oh, how hard is it already to be a woman?
True.
We're not that special.
No, you really aren't. Dr. Moreau creating an animal with a woman's heartbreak just will not stand in his book. Dr. Moreau, on the other hand, is cool as ice while calmly drinking tea and explains his evil plan to make Lota capable of loving, mating, and having children, then present her to the scientific world back home. It's hard not to wonder why Dr. Moreau thinks that the one thing the scientific world is really clamoring for is a whip-cracking madman with high-maintenance facial hair to announce that he has created a reason why you have to pay child support in kitty litter.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Why was the creating a woman the thing that just Parker could not overlook everything else, but this is the hill he's gonna die on? It just seems weird.
Because we as women are so different and alien. He didn't have a sister. That's what it was. If he'd had a sister, he would have realized they were just weird and gross, just like the rest of us.
It's okay to torture men with, like, knives and vivisection and tearing them apart and inserting weird bones into them. But women come with all of these horribly overwrought emotions.
We're so delicate. God forbid you touch us with medicine like you've done in the past, believing that we don't feel pain.
Those emotions are the most painful thing in the world. Why would he give woman emotions to a creature if he didn't have to give it to them? Like, wow.
Oh my god. Just fuck the fuck off.
Yeah.
It's a classic biblical theme of everything being fine until woman was created.
Is that what destroys the Garden of Eden that is the island?
Oh,
That is basically the
Andy,
message.
just fuck.
I'm not supporting it, I'm noticing it.
Fuck.
Thank you, 1930s, for your support.
God
Great.
fucking damn it.
When Moreau admits he used Parker as part of this experiment to see if Lota could be attracted to a man, Parker slugs him in the face and threatens to stop Dr. Moreau's work if he does not get Parker back to land. Dr. Moreau is probably getting off easy, actually, considering that Parker still has an actual gun.
Yeah, the same gun that he gave him earlier.
I mean, a lot of these problems, you have to remember, this guy he's got a gun. Why is he even arguing?
Why didn't Moreau or Montgomery try to seduce or work with Lota What's their issue that they couldn't be part of this sexual experiment, of their own?
Well,
What's going on with them?
they say that it's because she's terrified of them, which is legit, but yeah, subtext.
They have crossed so many other lines. Why wouldn't they cross that line?
The whole time I'm waiting for Parker to just stop arguing and present the gun and say, this is why you're going to do what I say. And hopefully then Moreau would turn around. Moreau could turn around and be like, yes, I gave you a gun, but not the bullets or something.
That would have been really fucking sharp.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, the thing that causes Parker to slug him in the face is when he realizes that he's been part of the experiment, euphemistically.
The experiment was coming from inside the house the whole time. The Doctor is enraged after this meeting and goes to threaten and abuse Lota for letting Parker find out about her origins. At first, he thinks Lota said something, but once Dr. Moreau realizes it was her sharp nails that tipped off Parker, Dr. Moreau starts to go a little crazy, muttering to himself. With a sudden insane laugh, he decides to take Lota back to the House of Pain to burn out the animal in her. Yikes!
Fuck.
Meanwhile, Ruth and the bold, daring Captain Donahue have arrived at Dr. Moreau's island. The local inhabitants notice them and dock their boat. Captain Donahue asks if Ruth is afraid of the jungle, but she is a modern, confident woman of the 1930s who has no fear of the supposed funny sights seen in these islands. All she's afraid of is communists and the inevitable decline of the nuclear family. Nevertheless, when she and the captain come face to face with Oran, one of the strange island inhabitants, Ruth is startled. Captain Donahue wants to beg off walking through the weird jungle, but Ruth is determined to find her fiancé, Parker. The other locals avoid the newcomers, but instead inform Dr. Moreau of one man, one not man, like Lota, who have arrived on the island. Congratulations, Doctor. Your crowning achievements can count to 1, with a bit of effort. Moments later, Ruth and the captain reach the gate of the house and are startled yet again by Oran, who is spying on them behind a bush this time. Dr. Moreau appears to wave Oran off, then politely invites Ruth and the captain in. Parker and Ruth are overjoyed to see each other, and Captain Donahoe is impressed by the insane Minecraft labyrinth of a house. While everyone is distracted, Moreau invites Oran into the house before locking the gate. He has a new experiment planned on his creature's attraction to the opposite sex, and this time it does not involve Parker, but rather his fiancée.
Foreshadow. Wait, are we still doing foreshadowing?
Is this after shadowing at this point, or are we mid-shadowing?
Consent be damned!
We can all agree there's a lot of shadowing.
True.
Well, it is a prelude of things to come, sadly.
Ruth has no idea of Dr. Moreau's sinister intentions and calls his house charming while referring to her previous fears that Parker would be in a terrible place. She literally has no idea. Parker rushes off to pack his things so they can get going. Presumably he has collected a set of decorative souvenirs or something, considering he arrived with nothing but a loner white linen suit from Montgomery. Meanwhile, Lota tries using the distraction of the guest's arrival to escape the house. She fears Dr. Moreau's promise to bring her back to the House of Pain, but surprisingly, when Mr. Montgomery catches her, he promises no House of Pain for her anymore. His grim determination makes us wonder what he is planning. Perhaps he is not 100% shitbird after all.
So, I gotta ask here. Does anybody have any sense of, what caused the change for Montgomery? He's, this complete sleazeball who slept with all of his students, got kicked out of England, and now works with Dr. Moreau and has been helping him all along with all these vivisections, including making Lotta, and the plan to, have her sleep with Parker. And suddenly now he's like, maybe I've grown a conscience.
You're not going to like the answer, but I think
it's because as soon as they let girls into the clubhouse, he decides it's all over.
No. It's because when they decide to test the white woman with the animal beast creature, that's the line. That is the line.
Got it. Okay.
I told you you weren't going to like the answer.
That's what makes him say, Moreau, you've gone too far.
Or, to be honest, though, have any of you ever not, like, had this fantasy of sleeping with your professor? Like, if you've been more, like, kind of hot? Just a little bit?
No, I'm good.
I'm alright.
Well, if my professor had a gong and a whip, maybe.
Oh. I had some fucking hot professors, so just, I don't know. Maybe I'm an outlier.
Okay, and this episode is sponsored by Hope's ill-disguised kinks and fetishes.
Hey, I'm not going to deny it.
As a tutor, there are lines you just don't cross.
Hey, I didn't say across the lines. I just said, who hasn't thought about it? Just a little bit.
Well, on the secret island of Dr. Moreau, the lines become squiggles.
I don't know about y'all, but I had some really hot anthropology professors.
Leave that for a different kind of podcast. Parker must pack really slowly, because by the time he's ready to leave, night has already fallen. Why, he wonders, did he pick up an entire suitcase of tchotchkes during a one-day island vacation? Well, hindsight is 20/20. Parker tries to urge them to depart for the ship, but Dr. Moreau gives his guests another, now familiar, warning to stay out of the jungle at night. The Doctor even has the balls to refer to Parker's dangerous run-in with the local inhabitants the night previous. However, Dr. Moreau pretends to be the gracious host, inviting Ruth and the captain to spend the night and have dinner with him to avoid the danger. Parker stays silent as Ruth accepts the offer. After all, it would be Parker's fault, the Doctor points out, if he insisted they leave at once and anything happened to her. And once again, Parker has a gun. At this point, the only thing keeping him here is an overinflated sense of politeness at not wanting to be a rude guest. Are we sure he isn't Canadian?
I mean, it's distinctly possible. They never specifically say he's American.
Fucking seriously, I mean...
British politeness in overdrive.
Why, there's no excuse for bad manners.
This is so much gaslighting. It's like, oh, but if you left now, it would be your fault if you died. It wouldn't be my fault for driving you out and being creepy and gross.
The whole film is lit by gas lamps, let's be honest here.
So true, actually.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
When is dinner time? I am starving, and I didn't even get to see my pineapple earlier.
Food. That's what you're worried about. It's almost dark, and we don't know what bizarre creatures are out there in that jungle.
Oh, you can say that again.
What was that?
We're just sitting ducks out here. What if something horrible and nasty comes out of the bushes? We need a shelter, so Zach can stand outside and tell people they aren't welcome.
Stand outside? What the hell? I stand inside where the movies are, and I tell outside people that they aren't welcome. Thank you very much. Stand outside.
I can't believe it, but for once I actually agree with Andy. Ugh. Everyone, find some wood and shit to build a shelter, and be quick. Zach, let Brother Methuselah out of the lifeboat.
Do I have to? I don't like his creepy little everything.
Yes, we could use his help with the building, and he still needs to make amends for abetting Verifier Andy's horrid scheme.
I can be very helpful. Fine.
I do just want to point out he made a really shitty hench person. 2 stars, would not use in a diabolical plot again.
But you still give him 2 stars?
Hey, I'm not a brute. 1 star is like the kiss of death. He'd never get to hench again.
I can't believe it.
Shelter. I already got a door.
I can't do this when I'm hungry.
Look at his hands. These are the hands of an artist.
Silence!
What the fuck? Where did that come from?
I found it in the wreckage, and I'm not afraid to use it. Now, go get some wood and other building supplies from the beach or the jungle. We need to get this shelter finished by nightfall. Okay. Maybe it is time for a break in construction. After all, we still need to finish our summary of the Island of Lost Souls.
If I volunteer to give the last part of the summary, can I make Brother Methuselah dance while I do a voiceover? I just really miss TikTok.
I'll consider it.
During dinner, Dr. Moreau tries to get Captain Donahue drunk. Since Donahue is a sailor and the booze is free, Moreau succeeds. He doesn't even need to roll for it. And if you want to roll some dice of your own, look me up on startplaying.games. I am a professional game master running games full-time, and seats cost about as much as a quick night on the town. That's startplaying.games. Click Find Games and search Alessa. Alessa. Anyway, Mr. Montgomery, who usually drinks like a fish, is stone cold sober this evening, though. Just as the conversation turns to cannibalism versus the local strict vegetarian diet, the guests start to hear said locals chanting their familiar ceremony. Dr. Moreau utters the now familiar racist cliche, "They are restless tonight," ugh, and Uran appears at the window to startle Ruth a third time.
So, actually, funny story. While the film and the screenwriters didn't literally invent the phrase, you can find it throughout like 19th century nonfiction and accounts of actual doings. As far as I could find, I believe this film is the first time that is spoken in a film. Like, this is the film that made that line famous.
Damn.
Breaking new ground all over.
The natives are restless and
Yeah, and it's not just they are; it's the natives are restless.
I'm just, I'm gonna take my previous statement back of, it's little steps. No, you don't even get that anymore.
Baby steps.
Ruth cries out in fear, but then insists she's fine. Just cannot admit that this place gives her the heebie-jeebies. To be fair, the quasi-men beasts are a bit loud out there in the jungle. On the way up to bed, the guests pass several creatures preserved in jars. Nothing creepy about that.
Hey, he's simply keeping the pickled remains of his failed experiments on display, like you do.
Ruth and Parker share a chaste but terrified hug in her room. Afterwards, she loudly insists there's nothing to be afraid of. Again, maybe she's just trying to convince herself at this point. Or maybe she has all the self-awareness and survival instincts of a bag full of shoes. Parker definitely knows their danger and asks her to lock her door. During the night, while Ruth is asleep, Uran climbs up to her window.
More foreshadowing. Bum, bum, bum.
Exactly. Uran is determined to get into the room, so he removes 2 bars from her window. Yoink, yoink, yeet. The noise wakes Ruth up, however. When she sees Uran there, she starts screaming.
That's a good call on her part.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. Parker grabs his revolver, which definitely has bullets in it, and runs to her door, but he can't get in. She took his advice and locked it. Oops.
Foreshadowing come true.
Oh, no. Now we're past shadowing.
Oh, sorry. Yes, the foreshadowing has come to fruition.
Parker shoots through the bars at Uran and misses him, but it is enough to make Uran flee for his life. Parker insists that Ruth leave the island with him immediately, and now she isn't arguing.
And she doesn't even have a gun.
Exactly. There's only one person with a gun here, and it's not Moreau. Meanwhile, the screams and shots have waken up Mr. Montgomery, who curiously goes not to Ruth's room, but to find Dr. Moreau. He confronts Moreau with his intentions when he said they no longer needed Parker after Ruth arrived to continue the experiment.
Oh, come on. He knew exactly what Moreau was talking about before.
Yeah, you can't, feign ignorance at that point.
This is what I'm saying. Montgomery's the one character who, from a script perspective, I don't quite get.
He's like the evil... Here. He's the evil character who is evil, but is, teetering on the fence, and then just okay, you know what? I'm not... I'm not...
Good bad guy.
I mean, yeah. He's not completely committed to what's going on. He's the intern of Dr. Moreau.
True.
So he's actually a bad guy.
Oh my god. Disgusted, finally, good grief, this guy has an insanely high tolerance for really foul experiments, Mr. Montgomery threatens to leave back to England and take his chance with the law. Montgomery grabs the keys and some flashlights and gives them to Ruth and Parker, saying he wants to come with them back to England. Here is where Dr. Moreau makes his critical mistake. Realizing he is finished if Montgomery and the others escape to tell the world what a monster he is, Dr. Moreau tells Oron to break one of the laws and kill Captain Donahue. Oron says no at first, but Dr. Moreau assures him it is all right. Just for tonight, just a little bit of murder, just as a treat. You've earned it.
Roll over. Good. Now go murder.
Just this one time. It won't make a difference. Just this one time.
Just once. It's just once. Meanwhile,
No
Captain
one
Donahue
needs to know.
Captain Donahue is fleeing alone through the jungle to the ship. He threatens to shoot the local inhabitants that approach him and finally does shoot one. Oron, hot on Donahue's heels, uses the moment to jump on him. As directed by Dr. Moreau, Oron strangles the captain, but this is where it all falls apart for Moreau. The other local inhabitants are infuriated that Oron broke the first law.
Thou shalt not touch the other side direct?
This isn't Joe Abercrombie, dude. It's H.G. Wells.
Oh, right.
People are stupid? No, wait, that's Wizard's first rule.
The English church is free and its rights and liberties are intact.
Shaken, not stirred?
Not to spill blood. Jeez. The sayer of the law repeats his refrain from before. What is the law? Not to spill blood. Are we not men? And follows it up with his accusation, you broke the law. Oron defends himself saying the law is no more, and this interests many of the hearers who ask, law is no more? Sayer, the law, and Oron have a conversation about why Oron spilled the captain's blood and who told him to do it, which ends when Oron reveals Donahue is dead by dumping his body on the ground.
Featuring the return of the most hardworking dummy in black and white film.
Oh, law is no more? It was before.
Since Captain Donahue is a man like Moreau, the beast folk have the crashing realization that Moreau can also die. The sayer of the law sits dumbfounded by this new knowledge, but the others quickly grab torches to go kill Dr. Moreau. And this is why a strong, independent court system is the proper basis for a judiciary and not a mob of gibbering man-things.
Not to mention strange women lying in ponds distributing swords. Food for thought.
MAGA mouth breathers take note.
Dr. Moreau and Mr. Montgomery are warned of the danger in time by Maling, who abruptly dies.
Wait, what? Why does Bling die?
Because fuck you, that's why. And did you just call him Bling?
In my defense, the movie didn't have any subtitles. And they had those weird 1930s accents, so that's what I thought Mr. Manservant's name was. I thought he was called Bling.
The manservant named Bling.
Montgomery and Parker immediately plan their escape, but Dr. Moreau seems completely unfazed. He plans to take his whip and set things back in order. This man must have a serious god complex to think he will walk away from this one. But then, to a man with a whip and a little gong, every problem calls for a good whipping, followed by a gong session. Gong.
He is on
Gong.
record saying he's basically like a god on this island. Like, what, 5 times?
At a minimum. In the future, if you're going to request a formal count, you'll need to file the proper request forms at least 3 days in advance. Otherwise, don't expect precision.
Got it.
Well, the plans have been on display for the past month over in the foreman's office down in the basement. Anyway, Moreau goes through the usual motions with the gong, the whip, the mincing, but womp womp, the law no longer has any effect on his creations. Sayer of Law, Bela Lugosi, in a full-body wig, argues that the law is no more, since Oron was told to break the law by Moreau himself. At this point, the creatures approach Dr. Moreau en masse, and it's not to give him a hug. Dr. Moreau first tries to fend his creatures off, but who could have seen this coming? Fails.
Nat one.
Yeah, but then he tries to flee, but they pursue him into the house. Cornered, outnumbered, Dr. Moreau uses his trump card. He threatens them with the House of Pain, at which they pause in fear for a moment. Which makes sense. It is the House of Pain, after all, not Chuck E. Cheese.
To be fair, Chuck E. Cheese is the House of Pain of an entirely different variety. Come on down, have some questionable pizza at our child casino while an animatronic rat serenades you. And they don't even serve beer anymore like they did back in the good old days.
That's why God invented hip flasks.
Huh.
Well, also an interesting bit about the Chuck E. Cheese animatronics, they completely and utterly demolished those. They had all of their managers provide proof that they destroyed them because of their association with a certain other creepy animatronic franchise. Allegedly. All of this is
Oh
alleged.
my god, they didn't. Five Nights at...
No.
Really?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, again, I have to say alleged, but...
Gosh.
Do some digging.
Yeah. That is a missed opportunity on their part. Like, they could have done the adult version of, like, Chuck E. Cheese Halloween House of Horrors. I mean...
Oh, that sounds so
it
fun.
It was right there. There. Big miss.
But they got an image to maintain, so again, alleged. However...
Allegedly!
I love it. After a momentary pause, the Sayer of Law reflects that when Moreau made them in that place, he did not make men. He made things. Part men, part beast. This revelation is chorused by the entire group. And they finally overwhelm Dr. Moreau.
It's about fucking time. Moreau deserved this shit.
In a last-ditch attempt to stop the howling mob, Dr. Moreau points and says, "That is the House of Pain." But this, unfortunately, for him at least, has no effect. Then Sayer of Law yells stop, and they do. Looks like there is a new sheriff in town. Sayer of Law repeats, "The House of Pain," but this time with a much different intention. As if all the creatures suddenly had a light bulb go off at the same time, they grab Moreau and drag him into the House of Pain. There they do unto him as he did unto them, so many times, Knives Out style. It is not likely that they observe proper scientific protocol, and not that Dr. Moreau did either, and some of them definitely didn't wash their claws, but, well, revenge is a dish best served without gloves.
Or anesthetic, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, well, you get what you dish.
It's so hard to get anesthetic on an island.
Yeah. While Dr. Moreau is meeting his ironic doom, Parker, Ruth, and Montgomery make a mad dash for the ship. Before leaving the house, they pause to rescue Loda. Or Lotta? Loda? I
think they say Loda in the film.
It's not a lot of difference.
Andy, no.
Anyway. But Uran...
I'll allow it.
But Uran sees them leave and breaks from the mob to pursue them. Loda spots Uran shadowing them, so she tackles him in a truly terrific Panther Woman leap from a tree. There's a brief struggle in which they both die, but not before Parker finds Loda gasping her last breath of, "Go back to sea." With the jungle and house behind them ablaze, the three survivors reach the beach and escape in the rowboat back to the ship and civilization. We crossfade to a surprisingly sprightly piece of library music over the end credits and fade to black.
Now back to work. Step it up.
Finally. Finished.
That was exhausting.
It looks a bit lopsided.
That's being generous. It is, in fact, a Shaq's sad, less functional stepbrother.
Ah, yes, the hovel.
Oh, there you are. I found something incredible I've got to show you immediately.
This is gonna be good.
If you'll all just come up the beach with me.
What? Into the scary, waiting darkness?
Away from the safety of our nice little secure house?
It's a likely story, by which I mean this story is entirely unlikely. He's just trying to lure us into a trap. A wrinkly trap.
Oh, shut up, you old windbag. Don't you see we have bigger problems?
Oh, crap. It is starting to get really cold.
Everybody just get inside the shelter until morning.
Maybe we should have built a fire instead.
Now you're saying this.
It's too late to say that.
You know, I think we've learned something today.
Yeah. Like what?
Actually, no, I haven't learned a thing. Actually, what was that even about?
Look, it's a simple story. Boy meets girl but gets marooned on the way to the wedding and meets boy and boy's heterosexual life partner. Animal becomes man, man becomes anarchist, anarchist reverts to animal. It's all going down in the House of Pain. Jump around, jump, jump. We've all heard this time and time again.
It's truly a dusty old trope.
Yes, and we need to move past it, because past is prologue.
To the House of Pain with you.
You call me that?
Picker.
How dare you?
I mean,
I'm
for
not
that.
I'd be there.
I want to see it.
Oh, bugger, I lost my coconut.
I still can't believe Clark Nova just bailed on me. Just because he had founded his own cult of insect stationary creatures? Did I mean nothing? I'll show them all!
I'm starving. I haven't eaten anything since those salty snacks I found on the beach yesterday.
You found salty snacks on the beach? Some people have all the luck.
Or maybe there are sea turtles on the beach. I saw a strange pit in the sand over there, roped off with sticks and twine. Turtle soup, anyone?
You can't eat sea turtles! They're an endangered species!
Fuck right, you can't. Those bastards will snap your hand clean up. You seen those beaks?
Or those gullets.
And why is my phone still not working? Is it still waterlogged from the shipwreck? Maybe if I bury it in this sand, it works with rice, right?
Zach, what are you doing running in and out of the waves?
There have to be crabs on this beach. Any shipwreck movie you can think of. Heart of the Sea, Mysterious Island, they always find crabs to eat. Where are you, you delicious little ocean monsters?
Even if you find them, we don't have any melted butter anyhow.
I just need a minute to catch my breath under this palm tree. Ouch! You crusty crabs! Where did you come from when I get my hands on you?
I think it's scuttled away under that tree root. Not much meat on it, though. A sea turtle, on the other hand...
I said no!
If we don't eat soon, we're going to be endangered.
With our lack of sustenance, this society is rapidly losing its grip. Perhaps moving on to judgment will help us maintain our sanity.
I'll allow it. Inquisitor Ethan, you seem to have more wits about you than the other members. You can begin the judgment.
Me?
Yes.
Okay, that's funny, because I think I might be the hungriest, but oh well. Okay, so I've seen this movie a few times. I really like it for a number of reasons. I really am more like talking about the movie and movies about this movie or inspired by this movie more so than this itself, although this is an excellent example of cinema and cinema history. So, like, I very much enjoy...
I feel like that's how you feel about all movies.
Well, in particular, this movie I like because there's a documentary about the making of the island of Dr. Moreau from the 90s called Lost Soul, which is about Richard Stanley.
Oh yeah, I think we've touched on that before.
Yeah, like the making of that film was a complete shit show. It was also Marlon Brando's last film, if I'm not mistaken, and there's a lot of fun, weird stuff that came out of that. But anyway, so I just wanted the thing about this movie in particular is it has a very iconic scene, one that has resounded down for at this point 90 years, and it's the one where Moreau steps up, bashes his gong, cracks his whip, and then demands, "What is the law?" And then all the beast people rear up and chant the law, and it's a chilling scene. Like people have seen this. I think it was even done in they parodied it in Muppet Babies or something.
They did. Oh my God, they did.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that just sticks in people's heads, and for good reason. You know, it's been in popular fiction all throughout the 20th century. I mean, Devo and Oingo Boingo both did songs in ode to this scene.
Are we not men?
Not just songs, entire albums.
Yes. But as iconic as the scene is, it does not occur in the book. The law is there, the speaker of the law is there, but it's really, really different in the book. And I think it's for a couple of major reasons. So I'm going to dive into those. First, the book came out in 1896 and the movie came out in 1933. We just kind of think of that whole era as kind of one big smear, but the social, philosophical, scientific, and medical progress made in those 37 years cannot be overstated. So if you want to compare, RoboCop shot that one guy in the dick 37 years ago, right? For us.
He did.
Right. But we think about that film as still contemporary. Like, we at least in our generation, we're just like, oh, yeah, that just came out 37 years ago. This film, Island of Lost Souls, is quite sophisticated for its time, and it builds on the science fiction concepts that Wells introduces. So, like, the film has a line where Moreau boasts about making changes to a cell's germline, which is to say they're talking about genetic modification in 1933. Compare that to the book, which, again, as I said, was originally published in 1896. The changes Moreau was making to the Beast People in the book weren't genetic. They were purely surgical. He was basically crafting flesh golems through plastic surgery, literally stitching together different species. In the book, the main antagonist among the beast folk isn't Uran. He's never named. He's simply referred to as the hyena swine. So, yeah, no, I mean, it's really interesting to see how they jumped forward on that in the movie compared to the book. I mean, they're both very interesting. They're like Wells definitely is known for being prescient in some of the same ways that, say, Jules Verne was as well. Like, people cite Wells as being one of the people who made science fiction a viable genre. The guy was a futurist. Like, he was a practicing futurist. He's one of the people who helped craft the League of Nations for, as toothless as it was, like, the idea of the League of Nations went on to found the UN, the idea of international law. He was one of the architects of it. But anyway, there's a reason why in the scene the animals all sit up and chant the law at the crack of a whip. There's a reason why they represented it this way. The screenwriters and people at the time were clearly studied. You have Pavlov's studies with classical conditioning, where he conditions a dog to salivate at the sound of a bell. There were the early behavioral psychologists like Edward Thorndike and John Watson were studying how people and animals learned, what they call the conditioned reflex. And those theories that they built around the time this movie was made were later revised by B.F. Skinner in the 1950s into the operant conditioning model of behaviorism, which is and remains the foundation of all professional animal training today. Compare that to when Wells wrote the novel. Psychology barely existed as a discipline. I mean, we're talking about Sigmund Freud and psychoanalysis, no integration with other schools of thought on learning and behaviorism, just, the idea that behavior was linked to experiences. H.G. Wells had a very different take on the speaker of the law. He was more like a priest kind of character who squatted all day in this squalid hut chanting the law like biblical verses, and the beast folk were expected to go sit with him every day and recite the law with him. It was also described in the book much longer and duller and harder to remember, and the main protagonist, Prendick, I know his name's different in the movie, Parker, but at one point when he escapes Moreau, he ends up with this village with the beast people before he knows what's actually going on. He just kind of sits there with them in the hut and chants along the law, tunes out most of it. But it's not like this, these simple, easy to remember things repeated at the crack of a whip. And I think that was actually a much smarter way that they did it in the movie. It doesn't have the same connotations, though. The whole function of the law in both book and movie are key features, but in different ways. So in the book, and again, the way the law is represented, you have to remember at the time, Marx, Bakunin, Nietzsche, these were all people who had risen into public prominence as philosophers and sociologists. Communism, anarchism, atheism, and nihilism were all very present things being chewed over in the public zeitgeist in the 1890s. And the book blends those currents with the thoughts about the dissolution of organized religion, because for the first time perhaps ever in history, rational people were beginning to recognize organized religion for what it is, a tool of social control. I think the book addresses that really well. The movie does not, but it addresses it, operant conditioning, in a totally different way. I mean, it glosses over the idea of law as religion, but it's looking more at conditioned reflex than it is looking at religion as tool of social control. Another thing that's really majorly different between the movie and the book is Moreau's death. In the book, he's killed in the jungle while chasing after the puma that breaks loose while he's working on it. And the puma, which happens to be female, arrives on the island along with Prendick, and Moreau spends the first third of the book crafting her into a beast folk woman. But the fact that it's female isn't really remarkable. There are other female beast folk on the island. There's no forbidden love interest and these kind of weird side-eye hints at miscegenation, which the movie presents very clearly. They don't directly say the word miscegenation, but there's a lot of heavy hinting at it.
Well, that is one of H.G. Wells's things going on in the book. Like, what's his name? Moreau is plotting to have them sleep.
Oh yeah, totally.
But
yeah, well, I mean, it's definitely not as big a thing, or I think I would have picked up on it.
And Moreau was pretty much crafting the first furry.
Oh, yeah. But anyway, the novel presents Moreau's death as almost accidental, as opposed to like this is a thing caused by the revolution of the beast folk. It's represented as almost accidental and in very Nietzschean God is dead terms, because the beast folk happen upon it sort of accidentally, and Prendick, the novel's protagonist, at that moment realizes his own life is now at risk now that the beast folk are doubting the religion of the law. And so he rather cynically seizes upon and applies the idea of transubstantiation in order to try to keep the beast folk in line. Moreau's not dead. He's discarded his flesh that he's no longer needs and is watching us all from above. The law still applies. And, some of the beast folk buy it, but most don't. And the last act of the novel concerns Prendick living alone among the beast folk during their descent into anarchism as they slowly revert to their animal natures. A lot of really heavy subtext here.
Without religion and God, society falls apart, right?
I don't think he's saying that exactly. I think he might be. Like, you can look at it both ways. I think he might be, making critiques about human society specifically, or he might be saying that, we need these structures to function. Like, you can make an argument either way. I'm going to get to that. But it's not surprising that the movie doesn't follow this arc, in part because, limitations on time. People weren't consuming movies the way that we consume them now. And also because the special effects of the 1930s, they couldn't really show these animals reverting in the same way. But also because the Russian Revolution and the seizure of governments by fascists like Mussolini and Hitler, who were experts at wielding the power of the mob, were still present. Those were things that had happened. They hadn't happened at the time that H.G. Wells was writing the novel. They were, in theory, there were anarchists and communists who were agitating to seize power, but they hadn't actually seized power. Whereas the filmmakers were watching this happen. Mussolini had done his march on Rome. They had seen the Russian Revolution, and this was still fresh in people's minds. The first Red Scare had happened. So it's no surprise that they depicted Moreau's death as a result of the beast folk rising up in a mob. Also, compared to the book, Prendick is not rescued by his girlfriend and they flee, the descent from this island. No, he eventually escapes, again, sort of by accident, when a boat full of corpses drifts to the island, and also one of which is red-headed, but Prendick implies but never reveals for certain that it's the drunken, sort of semi-bestial captain who put him off the boat at the beginning. He disposes of the bodies, rows off to be miraculously rescued at sea by another ship. But yeah, not rescued by his fiancée like in the movie. Two other major themes that appear in both the novel and the movie are colonialism and eugenics, and I've been thinking about this for a couple of weeks, and I cannot figure out whether these are presented in critical or apologetic terms. Sometimes I feel like it's one way, other times I feel like it's the other way. I do know that H.G. Wells believed in human improvement through science, and I think he supported eugenics early on, though he definitely later repudiated that position after World War II showed the true horror of using race science as national policy. Yeah. But I think he might have been being critical about colonialism is the whole idea of, quote, civilizing, quote, barbaric people was the core justification of colonialism and empire building, dating all the way back to the Roman Empire. And it's a justification that has been used by every one of Rome's successors, Great Britain and United States very much included.
Well, and one thing Moreau says is that man was supposed to be like the ultimate form. That's what all these animals were eventually going to evolve towards anyway. So he's just helping the natural progress. Like, he's not doing anything unnatural. This is where they were going to have gone anyways. very, very colonialist and eugenic.
Yeah, so like I'm not sure if he's saying that we need these structures, because Prendick definitely seems like he's somebody who's in favor of it. He seems like just a sort of a standard issue, British soldier of empire kind of guy, but like he's not represented in the heroic terms as he is in the movie, like very much in the book at all. And in neither book nor movie, Moreau is presented in positive terms at all, nor his attempts to civilize people via religion and super science. And like I said, Prendick or Parker is a pretty cynical bastard in the book, but he does come off better in the movie. One thing's for certain, though, the presentation of non-white people as animalistic is something that both the novel and the movie do to an unabashedly bigoted degree.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Reading the novel, it's pretty clear to me where H.P. Lovecraft drew inspiration for his notorious novella, The Horror at Red Hook. There's a whole lot more I could say. I mean, a lot more, like a dissertation's worth. This is just scratching the surface. But, so please, if anybody's listening, they're like, hey, you skipped over this or you glossed over this, please don't get upset. I just don't want to take up the entire conclave because other people have stuff to say too. So for those reasons, for all the reasons detailed in the charges, but mostly for giving Mark Mothersbaugh fuel for one of the worst earworms of the 1970s, I judge this film guilty.
Hey, I liked that song.
Zach, go ahead.
Me? All right.
Yes.
Okay. 100 years ago. It blows my mind that we can watch films now from 100 years ago. It also blows my mind that this is not a phenomenon that's going to go away. As we are in the 2020s, we can go back to the 1920s and watch films of life 100 years ago. Now, this film's not quite 100 years ago, but it's close. It's what, 92 years ago?
Yeah, it's 92 years old.
I mean, that's crazy. What's also crazy is there are people still alive when this movie was released. Watching this movie, I had a little trouble staying awake through it. I actually had to watch it 3 times because I fell asleep twice, which is funny to me because it's only an hour 10 and I'll watch 3 of the Lord of the Rings director cut films back to back, and not have an issue. I think that's partially because filmmaking as we know it was still developing. And one of the things that gave me a hard time is the lack of any Foley or background music in the film. So there's just these long swaths where there's literally no sound at all.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, back then they hadn't invented John Williams.
Yes, they were putting together a plan for John Williams, but he had not quite been perfected yet. But
they had Foley and they had background audio. They just didn't have a soundtrack. They didn't have music to go along through everything like we have become accustomed.
Which is interesting to me because before talkies, there was the organ player and instrumentals playing in the background of many silent films just to fill that void in the better theaters at least. So. And also, due to radio, there was Foley for many radio plays. So it just all hadn't come together perfectly. And I was also thinking to myself, how much of that was just, them not being able to mic people because, they're running through the background. And then when they get to a certain point, you would hear rustling and talking footsteps, and it's is it only because they had their mics pointed at this one spot? It brought some interesting questions to me just about how films were made back then, 100 years ago, and what was still developing. The other thing that was really interesting to me is that the version of this movie that we have watched right now, the uncut version, was not released here in America for about 90 years. This film was considered so extreme that they had to cut out large sections of it for it to be released in Europe and the United States, actually. And
that cut version got an X rating. Isn't that crazy?
They didn't have rating.
Well, yeah. And even that, the cut rating didn't get shown in UK until, 1958 or something?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, this movie was considered extreme. And, and it's not for the reasons that you think. I thought initially it might have been because they thought Jaguar Girl or Panther Lady was too
susky,
risque in her, little bikini number that she had going on. But it wasn't that. It was the depiction of the House of Pain, talking about vivisection. These were all considered really scary, horrible things that they were afraid were just going to freak people out and give them nightmares. And the whole,
just how much things have changed. That uncut version that was released in 2011 on DVD was rated PG.
Mm-hmm.
Just such a huge swing.
It is... It's amazing how our sensibilities have changed over time, but I will admit the scene at the end where they all they break into the medical instruments and they start grabbing the things that Moreau used to change him when they throw him on the table and go around and Moreau's screaming and you just see the huddle of them kind of stabbing and stuff. That I thought actually held up. That gave me a squick. That was
oh, it's horrific. Yeah,
it is horrific.
And that's a very good less is more sort of scene. Less is more. They don't show us the explicit stuff. You just have to imagine it. It's pretty good.
Well, and that's the thing that you have to remember, right? Is we are used to a very different level of violence and gore and everything else on screen. But for the folks of the time, this really was horrific. And partly because it played on the, less is more, you don't see it, it's hinted at, right? That even we today got at least a little squicked by certain aspects of it.
Yeah,
right? You just got to imagine what they were going through back then. It was
Sorry, it wasn't that long ago that they were freaking out people in theaters just by having someone fire a pistol directly at the camera.
That's right. That's right.
It was...
I had a question for Hope, though. Wait, you said it received an X rating?
Yeah.
When did it receive an X rating?
I'd read that too.
The cut version in 1958? The cut version that they
in UK gave it an X rating.
Okay, because MPAA didn't really establish the rating system until, that would have been when there would have been really new rating systems. They didn't really
No, this was when they put it out in the UK in 1958.
X-ish. I don't know if it's specific. I found that info on IMDb.
It was one of the first X-rated movies.
It said X certificate, so I'm not sure.
Okay, the British rating system is different from the US.
Yeah.
The MPAA has a different rating system.
But just for time frame's sake, right? Just keep in mind. So when this movie first came out, and in 1932, and it was edited a lot to get it out in the US in 1932. The Hays Code had just landed. This was one of the early post-Hays Code films, so you can see its impact on the film.
Oh yeah. And it's actually interesting if you even go pre-Hays Code in the 1920s and stuff, especially in French. And French cinema has always been wonderful about this, of just how much, sex and violence was actually in films before the Hays Code.
Oh, that's some freaky shit right there.
Yeah, and it's just once again, we have this idea of society back then being very watered down, and it's interesting when you see that, people back then were just as into all the weird, kinky, freaky shit that we are in now. If you watch M, one of Hitchcock's first movies, that is a freaky movie. And it wasn't that in the 1930s and 1940s people stopped being that way. It was just stopped being legal for them to have free artistic expression. So for the reasons that I have covered, but mainly because it gave the House of Pain the name for their ban, and I have had jump around, stuck in my head since the 1980s. I find this film guilty.
Okay.
So I have to agree with my colleagues here. I find the film very guilty for all of the reasons they've listed, but also, like Brother Ethan was saying, it's very ambiguous, their position on eugenics, on like social evolution, on what's the word I'm looking for?
Colonialism?
Like manifest destiny and the superiority of the white man and all of this. Like, are they criticizing it? Are they praising it? White supremacy, there we go. Are they criticizing? Are they praising? Are they pro or con? It's very ambiguous. And I think maybe they meant it to be that way. Like, you make up your mind, you think about it. Like, it definitely makes you think. And
without the context of actually having fascists and stuff truly in government, and not really having minorities having a voice at that time, it's interesting that anyone's even questioning it, but as still thinking of it as good or bad, you decide. I mean, now we're very much just like, no, that's bad.
yeah, but at the time, like you said, minorities weren't speaking for themselves. They didn't have a voice. So are these people are they trying to say, oh, look, these minorities, these savage men really are people? Or are they saying, look how terrible they are, we need to civilize them? It's really ambiguous, I think, in the film, if you take into account the time period. And also, I know they state later that Loda is not Polynesian. She's a creature. She's the panther woman. But the fact that he could even try to say she's pure Polynesian, I mean, that's the whitest damn Polynesian woman I've ever seen in my life. I know it's black and white, but you can tell. You could tell she's pretty darn white.
Well,
I have a friend who would be bitterly incensed at that. Like, she would be really, really pissed.
Well, and rightfully so. I mean, it's straight up yellow face. Like, I mean, it's black and white, but like you can see from the way they painted the eyebrows and like shaped the eyes that they're
they gave her big old bushy eyebrows.
It's not that far off from John Wayne and Genghis Khan. I mean,
and that wig they had her in was pretty damn awful.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
They were doing yellow-face as recently as the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Breakfast at Tiffany's, they had yellow face. I mean, so many movies that we think of as classics.
Remo Williams, The Adventure
Remo
Begins.
Williams, yeah.
I love Remo Williams.
He won an Oscar for that. For his yellow face performance. Yes.
That's Joel Grey.
Yeah.
And like we were saying about the ratings changing and stuff, it just shows kind of the change, how our views of everything, how we perceive things just changes with time. It's a great example of just how the passage of time changes how we see things. I mean, I was trying to explain it to my mom, and I was like, all those songs that were like hard rock and really, progressive in the 80s, they're on the soft rock adult radio stations now.
Yeah, you
all
hear
those guys
it in
with
the
big
grocery
hair.
store.
Hear the Muzak cover of "We're Not Gonna Take It."
Yeah.
It's not even that. I hear like RuPaul. I hear RuPaul in the grocery store now. It's like,
and in some ways, those can be great things because we're getting more progressive, and they can be terrible things because we're like getting desensitized. So for shining a mirror back at us, I would deem it very, very guilty. Also for trying to pass that white woman off as Polynesian. God. Yeah. So it's extremely guilty. So I've known a lot of Polynesians in my lifetime.
No.
They would like it.
Yeah. Looks nothing like that.
Andy, what about you?
Well, I came to this movie expecting to hate it. I thought, this is going to be an old movie. It's really going to need us to overlook a lot of bullshit to even get through it. But I was amazed at how watchable it was. And how visually impressive it was, because, they didn't have special effects, but they did have these amazing sets with really impressionistic lighting that was clearly taking a lot of influence from Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, with these huge shadows that were coming from no obvious source but looked amazing. And I was also surprised by the performance of Charles Laughton as Moreau, because while everybody else in the film is doing this very stilted, theatrical, boys' own adventure kind of attitude, Laughton is almost doing a completely modern performance. He's got these funny little asides and looks that he gives. You can tell that he's scheming and thinking of things, and he's really thinking about the interior of the character. What is he thinking right now? What is he plotting and planning? And that, in a way, really brought me into the film in a way that, without him, I would have seen this as being far too stuffy and difficult to get into, to even watch. So I found that to be remarkable for a start. There's also, as a lot of people have mentioned, the issue with the presentation of the other, the foreign in this film, and specifically the Panther Woman. And I was reminded of an actress called Theda Bara from the 1920s, pre-Hays Code, who was presented as being the vamp, the original femme fatale, the woman with the hungry eyes, they called her. And they made up lots of stories about her. They said she's come from exotic oriental lands. Nobody knows who she is. She's probably murdered someone for real. And
Wasn't she from Nebraska?
Yeah, she was. She was actually some, American chick who happened to get lucky in an audition one time, and they just made up all this crap about her in order to make her seem exotic.
And I'm sure her actual name was like Maggie or something.
Yeah, they're
she
trying
probably had
to
some
do,
interesting ancestry, and she was just ethnically ambiguous and could be
she
cast
didn't
as
have
anything.
interesting shit. What she had was a lot of eyeliner and good lighting, and that's as far as they went to make her look in any way not white. But it's they're clearly trying to do the same thing with the Panther Woman, because they ran a nationwide campaign to find their Panther Woman. They had people compete to be in this film, and they basically picked a girl who used to be a cheerleader or something. Oh, a model, that was it, a model. And they're like, right, you're going to be our Panther Lady, and we won't even give you credit. We'll just credit you as the Panther Lady to build this sense of mystique. And I feel that when we're talking about all the reasons why this film was censored and kept out of the public eye for so long, the sex aspect has got to be part of it. Because yes, it's violent. Yes, it's difficult in places with all the horrible screaming and whatnot. But there's a real throbbing sexuality to this movie. You've got the Panther Lady, obviously, and certainly to people of the time, there's lots of indicators that she is a femme fatale, as they understood it at the time. A sex pot, a temptress, a destroyer of men.
I hate to agree with Andy, but
why?
Yes.
There's also very heavy implication that Moreau is gay, like very much.
I was coming to this. Yeah,
This
is part of Charles Laughton's performance and the way he's giving you the interior of the character, because he's living alone with his male best friend. He's created a woman, but he doesn't personally have any sexual attraction to her, but he sees her as being sexual and wants to explore that, but he needs another man to do that because he isn't going to himself. There's definitely an implication there.
You also can't ignore the throbbing sexuality unspoken between the sea captain and Parker.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
But I feel like people at the time would definitely have read that as being, there's something between the lines here. There's a subtext that we find uncomfortable. And that has to have been in the minds of the censors, that there's, even if it's not said, there's something going on here that's sexually uncomfortable that made the censors of the time think this is too much. We can't have this going out there. It's gone too far.
And like we said earlier, what's unsaid or unshown is even more powerful sometimes.
Yeah.
And I have to say, as I said, Charles Laughton makes this film for me. He's incredibly watchable. He was a theatrical actor before coming to Hollywood, and they gave him this, and he just ate it up completely, hamming it up, enjoying himself immensely, making a wonderful meal of his whole role. He makes me believe that he could be a dangerous super scientist conducting bizarre experiments somewhere in the South Seas. And for that alone, I judge this film guilty.
Well said.
Andy, I agree that Lawton cold-blooded. That's all I can say, man. There's so many scenes. Everyone else is like freaking out. He's like, yeah, it's just going according to the way I planned it.
Almost.
Who is this man?
Almost like Hannibal Lecter if he had a sense of humor.
And a goatee.
And a goatee.
Well, yeah, and like...
I know, he just plays it so cool the whole time. Oh, yes, they're quite dangerous. Here, have a gun.
It's right here. Yeah, here, have a gun. I don't care. Like, it's funny though, Andy. I read his performance a little differently. If anything, he seemed the most classical, like almost the silent era, right? Like, so, like what you were saying about the asides and the way he'd like look at the camera and then look off to the side, like that seemed very much something from the silent era, right? Where you're kind of the camera is the audience and you're having a conversation with them with your eyes and your face through
He's
that.
definitely aware of the audience in a way that the other actors probably aren't.
Oh, yeah,
just straight up saying their lines.
He's definitely much stiffer. The only person I thought who was doing it, like, who got some truly modern moments was Bela Lugosi.
Oh
my God. Are you
like
serious?
Yeah. Hear me out on this. So, like, because, and he also, and it's like, yeah, Lawton was amazing. He rocked this movie. Except when Bela Lugosi shows up, every moment that Bela Lugosi is on screen is just like, and now this movie's mine for 60 seconds. And it's almost like the cinematographer knew it. He gets the only modern camera angles, too.
He gets only the modern close-up. Actually, he gets a modern close-up.
Well, he gets a modern close-up. He gets a couple of old-school close-ups, but, like, the way the camera comes down very dynamically at him for those, like, angles when he's got his arm out, like, the law of man! You know, like, really modern stuff.
I kind of feel like maybe they were working around the makeup with him that wasn't great, and that was the only way to make it seem good was to judge the angles carefully.
Lugosi was the last one cast on this film, and he only took the role because he was going through bankruptcy. They paid him less than everybody else because he had very few lines. He was going through bankruptcy, and that's how they got him. Otherwise, I think before, had they done it earlier, he would have been too big for this, you know? But then he was in a place where they could cast him for such a small role.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense then. So probably, yeah, I didn't know that. So that explains why his role is so small, but also why his is almost like it's shot differently. So they probably shot him last. Okay,
maybe.
I don't know that, but I'm sure like they didn't want to cast him and like overshadow everybody else either. You know.
Yeah.
How does that play into your judgment, if at all?
We'll find out come the interlude. Or no, after the interlude.
Wait. Where's Daniel? He was here just a minute ago.
I'm not sure about Brother Daniel, but there is something urgent I need to show you.
Well, I certainly don't need to see any shows from you. Blech.
But it is really quite important. Yesterday, when I went up the beach, past the third palm tree to the left to gather some driftwood for your shelter, I found...
This is really boring. Can you please stop talking?
I know a way to shut you up, you scrotal nightmare. Cannibalism has gotten a bad rap, I say. Perhaps we should give it a try. Then we can finally be rid of Brother Methuselah in a stew.
No, absolutely not. We need someone to carry the broadcasting equipment, but besides, he'd be far too tough and stringy.
And gamey. And just smell it.
Ugh, it's a pungent mix of mothballs and ointment.
Wait, is that Profligator Daniel coming out of the jungle? With a spear?
Are we back on?
No!
Just asking.
Profligator Daniel, what are you doing with that very pointy stick?
I refuse to let Clark Nova abandon me. If he won't return willingly, I'll bring him back on a spear, sharpened at both ends.
No one is spearing anything until we finish this judgment. Now, give me that.
Sorry. Not sorry.
Alyssa, you can continue our judgment. Any objections?
No, we better listen to the lady. Yippee! Don't argue with a woman with a pointy stick.
No objections per se. I mean, like, this I couldn't put my finger on it, but this movie really seemed to run similar to a lot of like plot lines of later movies, of going to an island and having all of this shit happen, and then you fuck off once everything explodes. I feel like this is like an origin film, of course, not without its own problematic elements, but
Like a precursor to all of those other films.
yeah, it was very much, it's had a lot of elements that I think really built out all of these various other films. Everyone keeps trying to figure out if it's like, is it anti-imperialist? Is it pro-imperialism? Is it satire? I'm gonna come out and say that it is as problematic and as 1930s as it is. I'm gonna say it is anti-imperialism, and the moment that really sold it for me was when the main guy, what was it, Peters?
Parker.
Parker.
Yeah.
Parker.
You mean
Anyway.
Parker.
Yeah, let me
Pepperdine,
take that back.
Pendrick, whatever. Yeah.
The moment that
Prendick in
sold
the
it
book, Parker in the movie.
Okay. But yeah, the moment that sold it for me was Parker taking Dr. Moreau's tea and like beating him over the head with it. That's what sold it to me, that this was definitely more skewing anti-imperialist rather than like more ambiguously so. And yes, this is 1930s, and yes, there's a lot of really horrific tropes in here, but I think that's definitely like the moment where it's like, okay, fuck this guy. I'm sure everyone already talked about, we probably ad nauseum talked about white saviorism a little bit. It was, very, very classic 1930s island excursion.
What else do you do on an island other than get into trouble so that nobody can see you?
Yeah,
Other than
exactly.
excurge.
But yeah, and then you leave the island while everything's exploding, because that's just how it goes. It's
Because you're the white savior. You're done saving them, so there's nothing left to do except just blow up the island and walk away.
Are you saying flee the scene while everything explodes behind you? We don't know what you're talking about there. That never happens to us. Shut up.
Plus, you're so cool you don't even turn around to look at the explosion.
That reminds me of Forbidden Planet, actually. Except it was the whole planet that time.
Forbidden
I feel
Planet.
Forbidden Planet reeks more of white saviorism than this movie does. This is more like, reaping the rewards you have sown, and then Parker was more like standing by and watching what happened as, and then was like bailing when everything was melting down around the mad doctor's head.
Absolutely.
I think, Alessa, you're onto something, that this movie is trying to make a point about colonialism, amongst other things. It does undermine itself somewhat with just classic 1930s white savior storytelling. It can't help itself. He bashed Moreau over the head with a tea set because, well, it's fine that you did this to all these other creatures, but to a woman? Well, but please continue. I think, Alessa, you're really onto something. Please continue.
This is like the very beginnings of where I guess the proverbial cracks were starting to show, and then it's just like I don't know. I'm trying to find the words, but it's very much like, you're trying, you're getting there. The point is probably, a few leagues off, but, you're working toward it. And that's what we're here for. 90 years later? 90 years later, you're like, good job, guys. You tried. It was an attempt. I also love that Parker was very much like, this can play into the white savior narrative, but it more played into the what what we sometimes say in the queer community as what the bimbofication of the male main character, where he's just kind of cluelessly going through this whole ordeal and just kind of thrust into the, oh my god, this is so fucked up. How did I end up here? I was just in a shipwreck, man. I don't know what the fuck is going on. And I, out of all like main characters in these kind of narratives, I think Parker is actually one of my favorites because he's genuinely like pretty kind, genuinely pretty fucking clueless, which gives him a pass on quite a few things.
So you're saying he's just kind of a himbo?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's also a good point too, is because I can't think of any movie that I've seen pre 1960 something where the male main character is rescued by his female love interest. Like that happens in this movie. I mean, so that, and as you said, the sort of the anti-colonialist mindset on this really explains a lot as to why this movie got banned in so many places in the Western world for, or big sections were cut out of it until like the 2010s.
They did start with Ruth trying to rescue him, but then they walked it back, and he had to rescue Ruth from the creature. Iran?
Well, they can only go so far with this, Hope. I mean,
right. She still had to be.
When could a woman ever effectively rescue someone? But the attempt is, innovative.
Is admirable. Like Alessa was saying, baby steps, right? Baby steps. They had an attempt.
Baby steps, baby steps.
He's definitely a very passive hero because he just gets plucked out of the sea and just from that point on kind of just goes along with whatever's happening to him and just moves from one event to the next. And it's just like, oh, this is happening now. Oh, I'm on an island now. Oh, there are these creatures here now. And just moves from thing to thing to thing.
Yeah, it's
reacting.
It's like
creatures.
Yeah, it's like a tabletop one-shot. Shit just happens.
Back to the himbo thing, it would explain why when his fiance finally shows up, he doesn't just say, let's get the hell out of here. He's like, I gotta pack. Like, dude, what?
He has to pack. Right? Come on, give him a fucking break.
Leave your white linen suit and get the fuck out of Dodge.
It wasn't even his, it was a loaner from Montgomery.
Well, then he needs to preserve it even more. Come on.
Does he really care about Montgomery? Is it like a love gift?
There's a lot of kind of low key gay references in this movie, or in the case of Burrow, high key gay references.
I was about to say low key.
Yeah, I kind of got that as well, very much so. Yeah, especially with the whole like classic. Actually, you know what? No, I'm not going to use the word classic because that's annoying. The antiquated like tropes with women in this era of cinema, and he was just very much like, oh yes, science and all that.
Well, and he had to bring someone else in to test Lotta, rather than he couldn't just sleep with her. He or Montgomery, neither of them could try to seduce her.
Well, that's because she was afraid of them. I mean, they did torture her for hours.
That is also very fair.
Okay, valid point. But I mean, they went over a lot of stuff. They pushed they crossed a lot of other lines. You'd think they would cross that one too.
I think the subtext was pretty strong, at least. I mean, but
yeah, it was also his just general attitude. While I don't know, some of the tropes maybe went over my head, but the vibe definitely was there. I mean, Jesus Christ, look at that fake goatee. Like, come on.
Please, Alessa, are you saying because of your love for Parker, do you feel like this film is not guilty of cinemania?
Well, as much as I like to talk about Parker, and as much as I'd like to talk about all of that stuff, it is unbelievably and irredeemably guilty.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Suspicion is enough to convict.
Oh my god.
Hey, listen. That sounds like the noise dinner makes.
Ooh, I like the way you think.
Oh, let me at him.
Daniel, take the spear.
Yeah, Billy,
Kill.
I should have moved on to another port. What the fuck? How are you morons still alive? The paddle boat sank. I had the only functioning life vest.
Wait, Captain Cajun guy? From the paddle steamer? You left us to die on a sinking ship? Why?
And where's your amazing Cajun accent? It was like warm butter and Quaaludes on waffles.
You assholes burned down my restaurant. You didn't even leave a fucking tip.
Oh no, we are so screwed.
Who is it? A cinema assassin?
It's the waiter from the pirate bar.
Oh.
And also our recent boat captain. I totally knew that accent wasn't real.
You might just be right about that there, little lady. That restaurant was my retirement from a life at sea.
Surely you still aren't mad about the all-you-can-eat shrimp. It said it was bottomless. Who am I to read the fine print?
Call me Shirley again and I'll keel haul you, boyo.
Oh, shit.
Because of you idiots, I had to flee my burning, sinking restaurant when the cops arrived.
I knew there was a reason we left before the aperitifs.
So I liberated a paddle steamer, chugged over to the Big Easy, and waited for my revenge. Because it was only a matter of time before you idiots ended up in Nowlands.
Diabolical much?
Exposition much?
Liberated a paddle steamer?
It's the only other job I was qualified for.
That's certainly a limited skill set. Pirate.
Don't you take that tone with me! I'll buckle your swash so fast it'll make your head spin!
Okay, jeez.
But then that storm ruined my plans to maroon you on a sandbar, and I ended up shipwrecked with you all in Puerto Rico, when everyone knows the best rum is Jamaican.
I thought it was Dominican.
We're in Puerto Rico?
Que buena.
I thought I'd be safely away from here. I thought you'd all be doomed. But here I am again, a waiter at another lousy waterfront dive, serving drinks.
Oh yeah? Well, speaking of which, could I get a dark and stormy Daniels?
You can get a fuck off!
Ooh, what's in that?
Look, we're not responsible for your career choices.
I'm not gonna let you get away with it, screwing everything up again. This time, me hearties, you won't be able to cut and run.
Why does everyone want to stab us all the time? It's so Freudian.
Avast, ye scurvy lubbers! Ah, what the hell is that?
Hey, Danny boy, is this guy hassling you?
Get him, Clark Nova.
Yeah, me too. Come here, you. I want to crawl all over your face and whisper sweet nothings in your ear. The needles rest
Oh, Clark Nova, who's your good abomination? Is it you? It's you? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yeah, I am so glad you're back. Don't you ever run off on me like that again.
Well, that makes 2 unexpected appearances today.
Not exactly unexpected. We ran into it earlier in the jungle. Don't ask.
Weren't you planning to stay in the jungle?
Am I missing something?
Oh yeah, Clark Nova was king of his own jungle cult of grotesque insect stationary supply creatures.
Yeah, you have to tell me how you organized that so quickly.
Oh, ever read Dianetics?
Okay, weird. But if that's true, why did he come back?
You ain't bug proud in the jungle. By the way, I think I may have earned a bump for that last little service, Danny boy.
Clark, you want a bump? You want a bump?
Yeah, I want a bump. Clark, you want bumping. Tickle me, tickle me, tickle me.
Speaking of the jungle, I've been trying to tell you, there is a resort right up the beach.
A resort? A beach resort. With liquor?
And food?
And Wi-Fi.
Yes, and yes. But they won't give you the password until you've brought at least 2 drinks. I've been trying to tell you, but you didn't listen.
Drat it! Just when I'd finally consolidated my power over this society.
We should definitely check out this source of potential cult members. I mean hotel.
To the hotel!
To the fully stocked bar!
And the all-you-can-eat buffet!
To the end of the episode!
Yay!
That episode of the Cinemania Society was written and performed by Andrea Palladino, Andy Slack, Daniel Scribner, Zachariah Burks, Ethan Ireland, Alessa Luce Martinez, and Hope Bravo. With special guest, Miles Miniacci. Produced, mixed, and mastered by Ethan Ireland. Music by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. Sound effects and incidental music courtesy of Epidemic Sound. Iris was excerpted from Naked Lunch by William S. Burroughs. Copyright 1959. Visit our social media feeds on Facebook, Twitter, X, at TCS_Cinemania.
And Reddit at r/the Cinemania Society. Happy now?
If you really like what you've heard, visit us on Patreon and chuck us a couple bones because making podcasts ain't free.
Very special thanks to Alexandros Katidakis and Ziv Lang for making this episode possible. The Cinemania Society is a product of the Cinemania Society, LLC.